This is Second Wind.
I'm Gully Flowers, here with my co-host, Jake Neske. Kelly Knapp helped shape the mind-blowing $2 billion sphere in Las Vegas, writing the early show treatments, defining how content lives on the exosphere, and guiding the interior design. She co-led the show creative for the 2025 Victoria's Secret fashion show, featuring Missy Elliott. She's designed immersive theater in Times Square and built Netflix's first permanent venues. Kelly, welcome to Second Wind.
Thanks for having me.
Kelly and I met on a blind date at a Japanese restaurant. She has one of the more interesting superhero origin stories of any creative that I've met in this industry. It'd be great to kind of hear how one goes from, trail hiking to, Las Vegas.
I look at my work as choreography, really, and storytelling through sort of the layering of different elements. I went to a ski school for high school and ended up in our outdoor program in college, and then went to Patagonia for a semester with the National Winter Leadership School, which is a pretty brutal but really fun program. You're out there for about 5 months, no showers. You're really working closely as teams together to get through all the things that you need to. I went to grad school 3 years at RISD, and then when I left, I worked at 3WA Group out in San Francisco. I do a lot of world expos, and that's sort of the foundation for the work that I do now. But I decided to leave that world and started to say yes to everything. I did window displays. I started to get freelance work from people seeing my work on Pinterest. One was a window display that had sort of a paper costumes, and then another organization reached out to me to do an immersive theatrical experience in Times Square, again from seeing my work on Pinterest. The earlier days of Pinterest, it was a lot of window displays, and it was a lot of handmade things.
It's like proper craft.
Yeah, it was proper craft.
Our friends at Pinterest will be very pleased. Maybe this episode brought to you by Pinterest. The ultimate career builder in craft.
Yeah.
So sea kayaking Patagonia, what was that like as a 20-year-old just going into the wild? I mean, that's a bit crazy.
Met someone in college. He was a junior when I was a freshman, and I had the biggest crush on him. He was also like a mentor in a lot of ways. He was so positive and joy-filled, and really was sort of boundless in his sense of adventure and not limiting. But I got there, you get kitted out with a pack that's incredibly heavy. You have crampons, ice axes, helmets, part of your tent that you share, food.
Ice axes?
The part of Patagonia, it rains all the time. So you bushwhack basically through bamboo for days on end in the pouring rain in wet clothes at all times. And you sleep in your wet clothes until you get up to the summit, and then you're ice climbing and glacier climbing. You do that for a month and a half or so, and you're just given a day that you have to meet your leaders. And if they don't meet you, they'll send out a search team.
And were you filming any of this? Was this like a...
This is for the love of adventure.
That's amazing.
But, it got me out of my shell, for one. And two, it taught me I could do anything. That first week was so brutal, being wet and exhausted, and all the training could not prepare me for what I was going to be up against emotionally and physically. And after that, I kind of don't say no. It's also informed how I lead, because there's no ego in the work that I do other than wanting to do good work. And I really believe that it takes everyone to do a project, and that no one is better than anyone else.
I worked in Japan for a while, and I really credit that for my work ethic, because they work harder than anyone else. And you just have to do a certain amount of stuff. And I think it made me tougher, but it was because I didn't really have a choice.
It was exactly like you're saying. You suck it up and you find a way to navigate through this space. There was one person that had to be evac'd because of a dental situation, and it was a whole project to get them out of there. And
dental situation. That seems unfortunate.
Yeah, he was really great too. Very athletic. It's too bad.
Wow. You haven't had a really traditional corporate career. You really focused on your craft and been pulled into the corporate world in a way around performance. Has there been a moment where there was a big shift in roles or a big surprise?
When I joined Sphere, a lot changed for me. I was actually looking at going full-time into production design for film, in TV because I really love that space. Sphere came sort of out of left field for me, and I had no tech in my background. I'd never been in a corporate environment. I never dealt with technology. I joined and had was like a PhD in both writing and pitching and selling ideas in a corporate environment, as well as the deepest end of technology. When I was hired, I was just supposed to be working on the atrium itself. There were going to be big activations in there. And when COVID hit, we got restructured, and all of a sudden I was doing creative for the entire venue. In July, the exosphere was powered on for the first time, and people reached out and said, "Well, that's what you were doing?" And I said, "Yes." And it's
Yes.
kind of crazy. Like my
Yeah.
family kind of knew what I was doing, but none of my friends did. No one around me did.
There's so many things about Sphere
Yeah,
and so many different elements as you went through that process. Like, what really stands out to you? There's a lot there, right?
there was a lot. There were three things that really excited me in the nerdiest of way.
Mm.
The first was when they mailed me my VR headset. I put it on and I was nauseous after like 30 seconds. By the end, because I was New York based and we were building a team in LA with a lot of my concept artists and stuff, I would be in a VR headset in my office with them out in LA having conversations. And by the end, I could be in there for like 2 hours and it would just be normal. Another one was we would have every few months an all hands engineering team would blow my mind all the time. The diagrams of how scent and wind would move in this space was mind blowing to me. Third
Yeah,
one
right.
was experiencing HOLOPLOT for the first time in our studios and really understanding what immersive audio meant. And I think immersive audio is probably one of the most powerful tool we have in Experiential now to really make an amazing experience.
The HoloPlot is the audio, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? So it's like super precise to the seat.
It's so precise. You can stand like a foot away from someone and hear birds, and the other person will hear rain, but you don't hear what each other is hearing, which is
Wow.
incredibly powerful.
Going from very analog to
Yeah.
now stuff that's so technologically driven. Do you find yourself using more tech in how you approach things?
I again look at all that I do as choreography. So if I write a show treatment, I'm thinking on multiple levels all at the same time. The projects that I've been getting more recently tend to lean a little more into the tech end of things. Netflix House obviously had some handmade elements, so I was trying to kind of put some of that Bergdorf Goodman touch into it, which is really handcrafted. But I've been using technology in a way that I'm trying to do something a little bit different. I think a lot of technology is used in dark spaces. Can you bring a lightness to it? Can you bring a delicateness to it? I've choreographed robots for dance in a really interesting way. So I think all the principles are still there, but I'm just using different media, basically.
Now let's talk about AI, because I think you have some
Yeah.
thoughts on AI, and it's all anyone wants to talk about anymore.
At this point, I don't believe AI is worth it. A lot of people around me, I've actually never opened it. I used Dolly once when it first came out. I haven't used ChatGPT, I haven't used anything, partly because I'm pretty efficient. I have my own practice and rigor in being able to do that in writing or envisioning an idea. I often will do a little paper model or a little sketch to kind of figure out the engineering or the physics of something. And I think that AI is very creatively limiting. It feels a little bit like a closed loop system. So if it's training on itself and it's training on other people and expanding from there, that feels like a little more of a closed system where you're spinning out ideas based on other ideas, right? But if you're just thinking through ideas, you can think endless thoughts. There is no boundary. I look at it all and say, why would I want to limit my thinking when I can imagine anything? The other thing is because I'm anchored in architecture and understand operations and construction and budgets and all of that, I think it's really hard to use timelines, budgets, architecturally standing, physics, engineering. I think all of that needs to be taken into account. And it's much easier for me to think about that as I'm ideating right off the bat than to reverse engineer something into it.
I'd be curious about your creative process and where you find inspiration.
I don't get to do my own work very often. I'll talk about that briefly, and then I'll talk about sort of the more commercial work. I actually have a particular interest in the idea of whether matter exists or not. And I'm more inclined to think it doesn't exist because
Okay.
of a lifetime of sort of research and study. And my grad thesis related to that within the context of landscape architecture and phenomenology. And quantum physics is starting to say that you need a conscious observer for anything to happen. So I'm trying to write about it and also use what I have at my disposal to explore that idea. So my personal practice is using light and anything that I can do to create an illusion while I'm studying and drawing and making maquettes. I'm inspired by fashion and music and architecture and art.
Is most
I
of
would
that in the feed?
I actually don't use social media other than LinkedIn, but it comes to me in books or whatever. Also, I'm like constantly networking just because I love to meet people, not really for any other reason. And so they open my eyes up to new ideas and things. But the rigor of the work I do is really set the vision, write a narrative, do mood boards. Sometimes I'll do a paper model if I need to more technically figure out something engineering wise. And then I reach out to like a few trusted friends and I say, is this possible? Can you do this hologram in this way?
Hand drawings, paper models.
Hand drawings, paper models, but I often, to be really boring, open up a Keynote deck and I start filling in the
Everything's in
pages.
decks, right?
Yeah,
Slides. Everything's in
it's
slides.
how I am able to organize my thoughts,
Sure.
right? And then I just like fill in the blanks. Okay, we need a vision, we need a strategy, we need a color palette, we need, mood boards, we need sound clips, we need, all that kind of stuff. And it just unfolds.
I have a friend who doesn't really have social media. He has Instagram and TikTok, but it's really only to consume clips that I send him. And I'm always like, why don't you just get on it? He's like, I like what you send me. He's like, I feel like I'd just be wasting a ton.
Satisfied.
He's like, I feel like I'd just be wasting a ton of time to get to see the same clips.
I
Like
have
when you were
similar friends, right? And it's a balance of like cat and puppy and otter videos with, right, like a Chanel show or something else.
You said you were on LinkedIn, obviously, for the
Yeah.
immersive inspiration and choreography and craft. What you would want written on your LinkedIn tombstone. I didn't want this to sound too morbid, so just try to lighten it up with the LinkedIn in there.
It's probably changed over the years. The most important thing to me is that it's written that I was empathetic and I listened and I was patient. As I progress in my career, it doesn't matter so much to me the work I'm doing anymore, as long as I am creatively moving forward, doing the highest quality work that I can. But I think what I'm seeing more and more is the need for mentoring and empathy and listening to each other.
That's great. I love that. There's a new generation of leadership. A lot of them are women who are much more empathetic and thinking a lot more about other people, right? Versus just like sort of celebrating themselves. I'm curious what your advice would be to brands or creatives who want to think about the sphere creatively, whether it's the exterior, interior.
I would say a few things. One is to look at sphere as sort of a boundless medium. Don't just look at it like a sphere in Las Vegas. Think about how it can extend beyond. You can really camouflage and transform that building in that space. I would say, as far as brands, the one thing, and I'm so excited that so many brands are excited about it, to me, the exosphere is starting to look like a billboard. I think a lot of the content lands really flat, and I don't think that's because of anyone in-house necessarily. Use the experts at Sphere, the concept artists and the other creatives there, because they live that medium day in and day out, and there has been such a history, even before my time, with Obscura, of experimentation to see how you could use the exosphere and the media plane on the inside in completely unexpected ways. There's a lot of like words that just wrap around that building. And I think that there's the interesting things are using illusion and depth, and interesting timing and all of that with the EXO in particular. The atrium is endless possibilities, kitted out and can be extended to projection mapping, to sound, to all these other techniques in there where you don't necessarily have to have something physical. So I'd say, lean into that too. It was built to be activated and it was designed to be activated.
Thinking about projection mapping in that space would be like so
Yeah.
incredible.
And
Has anyone
sound,
done that yet?
I think someone just recently did it. I got a
Right,
glimpse.
okay.
I have to do a deeper dive. There are actually galleries up there too, which are often sort of like cordoned off. One of the interesting things about escalators is they skip levels.
Yeah.
And you have to go up anyway, and it's easier to get up than the elevators, which, have lines and are off to the side. So I'd say take advantage of that journey. That could be a beautiful, there's like math graphics throughout the old building, and I led that endeavor to really understand sort of like science and technology and math that went into building Sphere and into the 4D effects. It's all over the wallpaper and glass in the various F&B locations or whatever, but that was meant to be a journey throughout. So as you progress deeper in Sphere, you could learn more and more, right? But that same concept applies to any brand activation.
What's the best seat? Because I've spent a lot of time trying to game it out, and I think there's different experiences in different seats.
Yeah, third level.
Okay, go for the third.
I keep
Center.
wanting to say it's center. I keep wanting to say it's it's 6.
Oh, you've actually got the seat.
Yeah, I know the building like the back of my. I mean,
yeah.
You direct the interior design, every inch of that space. It's the third level. There's, the overhang, right?
Yep.
It's like seat number 6 to 9 or whatever. Dead center is the best seat you'll get.
Kind of in the middle.
Yeah, which is how, shows are kind of meant to be seen, really. It's not the floor, I think, is the worst place to get to see.
Interesting. Because you don't get the
whole the grandness
scale.
of it. Yeah, you can see you two right up close, but like you don't understand the entire story takes place on that media plane. So you kind of miss out.
I wanted to switch gears to Victoria's Secret because, like, I tend to think of Super Bowl halftime show, VMAs, the Oscars, and then Victoria's Secret as kind of all in one bucket. Like, there's something that everybody knows. I imagine this was your first time with a show of this scale.
Yeah.
So, what was that experience like? Did you feel the weight of what the show was at all, or
No.
did you?
I don't think I fully understood. I'd wanted to work for years or work with. They do a lot of the big fashion shows and events you see out there. Just really elevated, beautiful sensibility. A pretty small team of people. The Victoria's Secret, I think, is their biggest show. And I came in with the remit to do this, and they said, well, this is really big. And I think because I had done Sphere and because I had just finished Netflix House and things, scale to me is like on a master planned urban size. It's not on a show size. So that to me is not intimidating. The thing that we all cared about were giving the fans what they love within the context of how we were going to do the show, which was, an LED floor, LED screens, and a disc that was LED on one side and the other side were steps and a stage basically came from down from the ceiling. But the fans want like bouncy blowouts and glitter floors. There's certain things, and if you do a dive down Reddit and see what they want, and so it's about listening to that within the context of what we're doing to try to give them what they want as well. It's his huge following.
About Netflix for a minute, because this is pretty amazing. Obviously, Netflix is a very innovative company and have some of the strongest IP. But then to go and sort of do the Apple thing, owning their own layer of IRL experience. I think it just opened the first one, maybe.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty incredible.
King of Prussia, 20 minutes north of Philly. It's in the old Lord and Taylor anchor space. The King of Prussia Mall, actually, I think is like the second most visited mall in the U.S. It's quite actually high end as far as malls go. It's a pretty nice mall. And it's interesting that Netflix decided to go that direction because it means that there's already a shell there. There's already sort of a built-in audience, right, of people who frequent that mall. I appreciate that it bringing in the every person. It's very accessible. You can go in, you can have a bite to eat. You don't need to pay. Whereas something like Sphere, right, is we usually have to fly out to Vegas, get a hotel, right? It's a whole thing.
Got to
And
reserve your time ahead of time.
yeah.
You got to
So
know
that's one
what
of the
day.
things that
So,
really
yeah.
attracted me to Netflix House. We'll back up and say that Dallas is opening on the 12th of December. So that one is almost open. It'll have a similar look and feel, different activations in this space. Dallas should be interesting because, right, it's in a bigger city. So I'm curious to see how it goes there. And then Vegas will be opening in 2027, which again will be another different audience. I think they're exploring, see what works, and then where they want to go next with that. It was very similar to a lot of projects that I'd done because I tend to be, for some reason, in this almost startup space within larger corporations or larger entities. So there's the familiarity about building something that is new and sort of building something as you're flying the plane. It's the first time I've worked with that much IP. It's a journey to get IP approvals and work with all the different stakeholders to make sure that they're happy with the work.
Experiential now is one of the fastest growing verticals in marketing. And obviously, particularly in the US, we have tens of millions of square feet in strip malls, large malls that are all being challenged as business models now. So Netflix House in many ways is a bit of urban reinvention. How do you feel about this sort of, entertainment space, like third space community building that's being sort of corporate sponsored at the moment?
Anything that uses unused spaces or reuses. I think that goes back to my landscape architecture days, right? Where I wanted to build community in places that maybe were tired or derelict or needed community or were in empty spaces. And I think that it's pretty smart because it's also a way to test out ideas without a ton of risk. When you're building a $2 billion sphere, you have a huge investment. When you're taking over a space in a mall, then you can focus more on who's coming and the activations and not worry as much about financials going into the architecture of the space. I think it's pretty brilliant for brands to start thinking out of the box and reviving communities and using existing.
I mean, we've got to do something with all those Dillard's stores.
Also, then other opportunities pop up around it. I think it's a good thing for the most part, as long as you're not displacing people.
Before you went into the Netflix venture, had you sort of gone to some of the more successful original IPs like Taller Factory or Museum of Ice Cream, etc.?
I should be ashamed to say no. I went to Mercer Lab just recently with a friend. I have not been to a lot of the spaces, which I'm embarrassed to say out loud. I have a lot of friends who've worked on those spaces, and I think it's really important to see what's going on in the industry.
What's your advice to young people? A lot of those traditional pathways into creativity and at least advertising and marketing have sort of fallen down.
I would say my biggest advice, whether it was young people or anyone, is to have a vision and just drive towards it. And it is not a straight path. You can't always decide what jobs you're going to get, where you're going to go, where life's going to take you. But I think you can continue to be yourself and be as rigorous as possible in what you're putting out to the world. And I would say experiment and be afraid to fail. I was one of those people, like I think many creatives I know, that to count my pennies to an extreme and was worried about being homeless, and moving in with people because of that. So I think if you're able to take a little bit of risk, take the risk. And I'll say one other thing, which I think is really important, is to put your ego aside. I think we're in a really singular focused attention space right now with social media and things. And I think there's opportunity in that space, but I also think it's a turnoff for a lot of people. So just, be yourself, be humble, keep going.
Have empathy.
Empathy. So much empathy. Because that it actually gets you far. People will remember.
Choreography and performance is all about empathy, right? You're thinking about the audience's experience or the viewer's experience.
Yeah, thoughtfulness.
Well, Kelly, it's been a pleasure talking to you and hearing about Sphere and Netflix House and ice climbing in Patagonia. I think you're our most adventurous guest we've ever had. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Kids, make sure you follow a handsome older man down to Patagonia and go on a 5-month adventure where you have to carry Ice picks. Well, thanks, Kelly. We appreciate the time, and yeah, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you.